Episode 3, Silent is the Grave, a travel through history of people and their final resting place. Welcome to Tales of the Alleghenies. I'm your host, Richard Sturtz. Tales of the Alleghenies will take you over the threshold of time, evoking your imagination. Come on, let's get started. I think you will find this episode of Tales of the Alleghenies not as dead as the title suggests. Everyone is familiar with the local cemetery where maybe your neighbors, friends, and family are buried, marked by the simple to the grandiose headstones. With inscribed dates and information about their life. Some include verses or clever sayings. Let's look at an earlier time. We are standing 101 feet above the valley floor on the Salisbury Viaduct, just outside of Meyersdale, Pennsylvania. The viaduct was built by the Western Maryland Railroad in 1912 and is now part of the Great Allegheny Passage Bike Trail. Looking over this Casselman River, most people would never give a thought to an ancient people who passed this way and died here. Before recorded history in Somerset County, there were villages of indigenous people who archaeologists call the Monongahela. One such site was located here in Summit Township. In 1973 to 1974, the village was excavated by the Carnegie Museum of Natural History and members of 3 chapters of the Society for Pennsylvania Archaeology under the direction of Richard George. I, being a member of the Somerset chapter of SPA, had the unique opportunity of unearthing and revealing the life of these distinctive people, dating as early as 920 AD. Yes, over 1,000 years ago. A total of 22 graves were found in various states of bone preservation. The burials were shallow and appear that respect was given as carefully laying the bodies in a flexed position. Some burials had ceramic vessels within them, perhaps containing food for their journey into the spirit world. How do you explain the one burial only finding the skull? Only one grave did not face east to meet the rising sun. Some cultures and religions even today face in various directions. This entire Casselman River Valley was a graveyard for these ancient people. Civilizations, with their need to industrialize, have laid railroad tracks and bulldozed modern highway corridors over long stretches of these sacred lands, destroying them forever. Next time you pass here, take a moment and contemplate what life and death was like for these Monongahela people 1,000 years ago. Advancing through history, we stop at what was the site of Fort Stony Creek in Quemahoning Township. Fort Stony Creek was the British military garrison along the 1758 Forbes Road. We find in a letter from Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Lloyd, April 26, 1759, that the officer of this post, due to neglect to build barracks, obliged his men to live and sleep in cold, wet winter conditions, only covered by a wagon cloth. He states 32 of our best men have perished or been disabled. He is constantly soliciting a reinforcement from me, to which purpose I have already sent him 7 men long sacrificed, and must preserve this post, send him additional number of the arrival of the Virginians. Letter dated April 26, 1759, from Major George Armstrong. It tells of a soldier by the name of Barber, who was a trapping and was killed and scalped almost within sight of our post at Stony Creek. Letter dated July 12, 1759, from Captain Gavin Cochrane, on our march to Stony Creek, and there the drums and fifes made their usual noise morning and evening, to show the men we were not afraid of the enemy, and to make the enemy believe we were stronger than we were. We pitched first our tents at Stony Creek, and then made an appearance as if triple our number. The Indians killed a sentry by the name of William Gordon. Captain Cochrane is almost uneasy about the soldiers with smallpox at this post. In a hostile wilderness, a soldier's life was always in imminent danger. Few Army doctors visited these small garrisons, and even then medicine was in its infancy to save a life. Even a chaplain to give comfort to the soul were not found at these small posts. At death, you may have been unceremoniously wrapped in a blanket or wagon cloth, or just in your uniform, and placed in the ground, a name and face forgotten in time. From the recorded deaths, disease, and conditions, in my opinion, at least 40 to 50 soldiers may be buried at the Stony Creek post. Where? Your guess is as good as mine. If the graves were marked by field stones, they were thoughtlessly removed when the land was cleared for farming in the 1800s. Then in May of 1955, the site was drastically altered by the construction of the Forbes High School. No archaeology was undertaken, but many fort period artifacts were found. We're looking at a British bayonet that was found at Fort Stony Creek, and a colonial button. Still has the eye loop in the back. And a musket ball. This is about one of 5 that are remaining from 2 cases that were unearthed there when a man was plowing his field. The burial site of these soldiers may be on the fringes of these past disturbances, resting until the final trumpet calls. Let's move on through history, on to McPherson's Ridge, into the stifling afternoon heat of July 1st, 1863. The Battle of Gettysburg is raging. As the left flank of Biddle's brigade began breaking and falling back from the overwhelming rebel pressure, the brigade commander ordered the 142nd Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry Regiment into a counterattack of forlorn hope. The 142nd fired into the oncoming 47th North Carolinians, briefly breaking their momentum, but on they came. The fight grew hotter and hotter. Acrid smoke of cannon and musket fire filled the air, burning the soldiers' eyes, and men choked for breath. Men dropping in all directions. This is the point of battle where we feel Private Joseph Ream and Private Joseph Sivitz breathed their last earthly breath. Outnumbered, the remnants of the 142nd fell back. Brave and courageous men of the 1st Corps did their job in holding their positions long enough throughout the day to allow the rest of the Union Army to come into supporting distance. Privates Ream and Sivitz's bodies laid behind enemy lines in the hot summer sun for at least 4 days, bloating. Lieutenant Colonel McCalmont of the 142nd on July 6 said, "Many human bodies were still unburied, and faces were black and teeth grinning horribly. War had done its work, and the air was terribly offensive with the odor of thousands of rotting bodies. If Privates Ream and Sivitz's bodies were recovered, they would have been buried with the unknown in the Gettysburg National Cemetery." On July 1st, 2017, Private Joseph Ream, after 154 years, would be memorialized with a headstone and memorial service at the Oddfellow Cemetery in Berlin, Pennsylvania. On July 1st, 2018, Private Joseph Sivitz, after 155 years, will be memorialized with a headstone and memorial service at the Walker Cemetery near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The services were conducted by the 142nd Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry Living Historians and martial music provided by the Berlin Fife and Drum Corps. Sleep, you soldiers on battle-worn fields. Does glory lead but to a grave? Is peace this silent, not to herald their deeds? Alive I'll keep your voices, you noble men, in gallant stories and in victory sung. This travel through time has revealed the certainty of death. Unveiled through archaeology, an unrecorded death is now recorded, such as the case of the Monongahela people. The soldiers and civilians that I feel were buried at Fort Stony Creek during recorded times became lost due to an unsettled and hostile frontier wilderness. Those graves may be discovered someday through archaeology, if the graves have not already been destroyed. As for Privates Ream and Sivitz, the violent, consuming destruction of life caused by the American Civil War left them among the unknown. Company F of the 142nd Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry represents the units Private Ream and Sivitz joined in 1862. I, being a part of Company F, was honored to have participated in remembering and memorializing Privates Ream and Sivitz here at home in Somerset County, Pennsylvania. I would also like to correct a slip of the tongue when I said McPherson Ridge at Gettysburg. There is no fear in McPherson. If you enjoyed Silent is the Grave, please let us know through comments or emails, since we are considering doing a part 2 of Silent is the Grave. Thank you for watching Tales of the Alleghenies.